Chapter 16. The Winged Steed. The next morning I had a proposal for my boys. If you wish, you may go exploring without me. Hooray! Shouted Fritz and Jack. Ernst showed little interest, and since this was a pleasure trip, I wouldn't pressure him. Franz, however, was delighted to go. In high spirits, they got their mounts ready and came to say goodbye. This was an important moment. I had long realized that fate, or the will of God, could orphan my sons in an instant. In such a case, they could only survive if they developed bold self-reliance, a quality Fritz constantly displayed. I gave orders. Fritz, take care of your brothers. Jack and Franz, learn from Fritz and obey him as your leader. We will, father, my two younger sons replied. I was sure that Franz would, at least, and could only hope that Jack would too. They were well armed, well mounted, and had a couple of good dogs. I could do only one more thing, wish them well. God bless you, my boys, and Godspeed. As I watched them ride away, I felt a mix of pride and sadness. I took a moment to appreciate each boy in my mind, to value a moment that would soon be lost forever with his maturity. Each was a blessing. Ernst decided to make the ostrich eggs into ornamental cups. I helped my wife smoke the bear meat and explored the cave. Its wall was made of a kind of talc, and I found some mica, a thin, clear mineral. I carefully broke away a large block of this and was pleased to find that I could split it into clear, transparent sheets. Those will make fine window panes, said my wife. We can never get enough replacements for glass. Evening drew on. We sat talking around the fire, enjoying the savory aroma of bear paw stew, listening anxiously for the sound of returning explorers. At last we heard the sound of hooves. It felt odd indeed going out to meet returning adventurers, and I got a glimpse of my wife's everyday experience. The little troop gave a ringing cheer as they saw us and leapt down from their saddles. Franz and Jack had each a fawn antelope slung on its back, and so that the four bound little hooves stuck out under their chins. Fritz's game bag had bulges in every direction, some of them moving. Nothing like real hunting, father, cried Jack. Storm and Grumble gave chase on a grassy plain. That's how we managed to tire out the fawns. Yes, father, said Franz, and Fritz had two Angora rabbits in his bag. My brothers forgot the main thing, said Fritz. We have driven a little herd of antelope right through the gap into our territory. We can hunt them when we like, or tame them. Most impressive, I cried. But the main thing is that God has brought you safely home. Now let's hear the whole story. We had a splendid ride down Green Valley and through the gap, said Fritz. On top of the grassy hill we saw a herd of antelope grazing by the stream. We were about to gallop down for a shot at them, when I got the idea to try driving them all through the gap. That would pen them in our domain, free yet within reach. We rode downhill, fanned out in a semicircle, and drove them along the stream toward the gap. As we came near the opening, I thought they might turn and bolt past us, but eventually one made the rush through the gap. The rest followed to become New Switzerland's newest settlers. That's great, son, I said, but won't they just return to the gap when they finish? We thought of that, father, he replied. We stretched a rope across the gap and strung feathers and rags all along it, so they would dance and flutter in the wind, as all that movement would make the antelope afraid to approach. Well, I said, the antelope are welcome to New Switzerland, but your rabbits aren't. They'll breed so speedily your next trouble would be getting rid of them. That's why I thought we might put them on Whale Island. They would have plenty of food without bothering us. We'll get furs and rabbit stew. Did you think my eagle caught these? Did you know that my eagle caught these? Now, father, interrupted Jack, before Fritz starts to put you to sleep with long descriptions, will you hear my story? Certainly, Jack, I said. How'd you catch those fawns? We ran them down. The dogs found them while Fritz was hunting the rabbits, and they took off at about 30 miles an hour. Franz and I chased them for about a quarter hour. We even outran the dogs. When we caught up, the fawns collapsed with fatigue. So we shouted to Fritz, and, son, by your statement, Fritz was 7.5 miles away. Well, perhaps we didn't ride quite that long, and our speed was only a guess. In any case, Fritz heard us, and he and Franz tied their legs. I am pleased at how well you three work together, I said. Then, turning to Fritz, I continued. I agree. We should establish your rabbits on Whale Island. I've been thinking of fortifying it as a retreat in time of extreme danger. Having a constant food supply there will be a great benefit. When we had taken care of the fawns, I tried to interest the boys in the talc I had discovered, but just then their mother called us to dinner. The bears' paws were delicious, despite their resemblance to giant human hands. I was very satisfied with our work. The bear meat was smoked, the fat rendered, and we had a large supply of bamboos. I had another venture in mind and planned to wake the boys up at dawn. After prayers and breakfast the next morning, I said, Boys, let's go back to the euphorbia and collect the sap, then see if the ostrich hen came back to her eggs. Only Ernst showed little interest, and I excused him while the others ran to get ready. Fritz rode young Swift the mule, I rode Lightfoot, Jack and Franz took their usual steeds. We took Turk and Juno. Ernst stayed to help his mother and study. Our steeds carried us quickly down Green Valley. We retraced our steps to the slope where Fritz had spotted the ostriches a few days earlier. Jack and Franz were eager for a gallop, so I allowed this while Fritz and I visited the euphorbia trees. Some milk sap had leaked from the cuts I had made, and I scraped it off with a stick and stored it in a bamboo jar I'd brought. As we rode after the boys, Fritz remarked, I remember you telling me the sap was poisonous, Father. Why did you collect so much? If the apes ever bother us again, I'll use it against them, I replied. It can be used to keep insects off a surface, but we must be careful. It's poisonous to touch as well as to swallow. The two boys were still far ahead of us when 4 magnificent ostriches, a black-plumed rooster, and 3 ash-gray hens suddenly rose from a dip in the sand. Jack and Franz saw them, gave shout, and skillfully maneuvered to drive them toward us. The birds ran at an amazing pace. They were within gunshot range before they spotted Fritz and me. Fritz had made a binder for his eagle's beak so that it could bring down an ostrich without killing the quarry. Now he fitted the binder and released the eagle, which soared high and then dove on the rooster's head. The huge bird slowed in fear and confusion. Jack was first to catch up and throw his lasso about the great body. We let the others escape while we surrounded the captive, whose violent kicks kept us at a safe distance. I was beginning to doubt we could take him alive when I remembered that we had calmed the eagle by covering his eyes. I sneaked up behind the ostrich and flung my game bag over his head. The eagle dodged backwards, just as I had expected. The huge bird stopped kicking. Do you know, I said to the boys, how tame a newly captured elephant in India? Tie him between 2 tame elephants, said Fritz. Too bad we have no tame ostriches, remarked Jack. Perhaps we could tie him between Storm and Grumble. Let's see your method, I said. Franz and Jack tied a broad sealskin strap around the base of the bird's neck, leaving slack so that he could breathe, then roped each end of the sealskin to their mount's saddle. Using a third rope, they hobbled his legs so he could trot but not gallop. When they were mounted up, I removed Jack's lasso and unhooded the ostrich. He lay still for a few moments, then bound up and tried to run. After the hobble brought him back down, he got up and set off at a sharp trot. Jack and Franz let their steeds run with him, but not too fast. When they reached loose sand, Storm and Grumble slowed. At that point, the ostrich seemed to realize the futility of his situation, and the boys led him back with merry shouts. Now march him home, I ordered, while Fritz and I examined the nest. The eggs were quite warm, and the mother must have just left. Leaving about half, I packed the rest of the eggs in a large bag. Before long, we had caught up with Jack and Franz and reached our tent without further incident. Elizabeth was not pleased. My dear husband, she exclaimed, do you think we have so much food that we must scour the desert for great beasts to help us eat it? I wish you'd be content with the menagerie you've already collected, instead of bringing home one of every useless monster you find. Useless, exclaimed Jack. Mother, if you'd seen him run, you wouldn't say that. He'll be our fastest mount. I'm going to make him a saddle and bridle and learn to ride him. As for his appetite, Father says he only wants a little fruit and grass, plus a few rocks to help his digestion. You're not the only one who captured the ostrich, protested Franz. He's right, Fritz chimed in. What right do you have to claim him? Come on, come, I said. I think that Jack has a very good right to the ostrich, seeing that he brought it to the ground. He's now responsible for it. If he can tame and ride it, it's his. It was too late in the day to start for Rockburg, so we fastened the ostrich between the two trees and spent the evening getting ready. At early dawn, our caravan set out for home. The ostrich was still troublesome, but we had to march him between Storm and Grumble. The cow hauled the cart with our finds and my wife. I rode Lightfoot, and Fritz brought up the rear on Swift. At the mouth of the gap, we halted to build a strong bamboo fence in place of the boys' rope. We also collected plenty of pipe clay, for winter was coming, a good time to make some china. While we were picking up our peccary hams at the canebrake, my wife discovered some sweet-smelling vines that turned out to be vanilla plants. She collected some plants and seeds before we moved on to our night's rest at Woodlands. Early the next morning we examined our farmyard, which was prospering nicely. The sight of our domestic animals made us long for Rockburg. The pigs, goats, and birds had all increased in number, and my wife wanted to take back 2 fine broods of chickens. The antelope herd had also taken up residence here. We saw them browsing in the woods. We made some repairs to the animals' stalls and our dwelling, and the next day we set out for the final short leg of our journey. What a relief to see our comfortable salt cave again. While I directed the unloading and storage work, I spent as much time as possible with Ostrich, whom we fastened between 2 bamboo posts out in front of our home. I thought we might hatch the eggs, so I wrapped these in cotton and put them near our cooking stove. Franz, Ernst, Jack, keep a small fire going in here at all times, I ordered. Next morning, Fritz and I sailed for Whale Island to release his Angora rabbits, then to Shark Island to turn loose the young antelopes. We hurried back to get started curing the bearskins. After we landed, we caught up with Jack carrying a large eel. "How'd you catch that?" I asked as we fell into step. "Last night, Father, I put out a couple of fishing lines. One was gone, but this splendid fellow was caught on the other." "He'll make a delicious lunch," I replied, and it was true. After we'd eaten, we started some home improvement jobs. I planted vanilla and pepper and some creeping plants around the bamboo pillars of our porch for the pleasant smell and the eventual shade. I built a couple of new hen coops for the chickens from Woodlands. Everyone voted that Ernst's smelly muskrat skins must go outside, but even out of doors, Jack made a great show of pretending to pass out every time he came near them. "That's funny," said Fritz once, coming from someone I remember wearing a putrid-smelling jackal hide belt. We put the condor in the museum to be stuffed during the rainy season. The clay, mica, and other minerals were stockpiled for later use. All this took 2 days, at which time we needed to plant wheat, barley, and corn. The much more interesting work of taming the ostrich would have to wait. Even though the animals pulled the plow, we did the digging and the hoeing. This was such exhausting work that we could do only 2 hours in the morning and 2 in the evening. The ostrich proved very stubborn. None of our taming methods worked. In desperation, I tried the smoke method, but the effect was alarming. The great bird sank to the ground unconscious. When he got up again, he paced up and down between the bamboo posts. He no longer tried to kick us, but he refused to eat for 3 days. I could see him weakening and feared for his life. "Elizabeth," I asked, "can you think of something?" My wife went into Rockburg and came back a little later with balls of cornmeal mixed with butter. She placed one in the bird's beak. He swallowed it and stretched out his long neck, looking for a second mouthful. A second, third, and fourth ball followed the first, and his strength soon returned. This kindness tamed him, and we found that he liked rice, guavas, wheat, and corn. Franz asked why he washed them down with small rocks. "All birds do that," I explained. "They can't chew. They use the stones to grind up their food. After a month of careful training, our captive would trot, gallop, come when called, and eat from our hands." Very good, but how did one saddle and bridle a giant bird? He wasn't a horse. We couldn't put a bit in his beak. I turned over vague idea after vague idea, rejecting them all until I remembered something. When we'd first caught him, sudden darkness had calmed him down. Perhaps light and dark could be used. I made a leather hood reaching from neck to beak, cutting holes for the eyes and beak. Over the eye holes, I positioned square flaps, with whalebone springs to keep them closed. I connected the reins to these flaps so that the rider could open either at will. When both blinkers were open, the ostrich would gallop straight ahead, close his right eye, and he turned left, close his left, and he turned right, shut both, and he stood still. In order to test my idea, the bird needed a rider. That would require a saddle. This proved challenging as well, but after several failures, I made one that satisfied me. It was peaked in front and back to help the boys stay on. I placed the odd-looking device on the ostrich's shoulders, as near the neck as possible, and secured it with strong straps in front of the wings and across the body. Now came the problem of habit. On most mounts, one tightened the reins to halt them and slackened them by let the animal run. My rig required the rider to do just the opposite. The boys named our new mount Hurricane, and we all practiced riding him. He could even carry me, though I saw it was a strain. The bird's marvelous speed again raised the issue of ownership. After the boys bickered a while, I felt bound to interfere. Jack gets to keep Hurricane, I said, because he's lighter than his older brothers, and Franz isn't yet strong enough to manage him at high speeds, but the ostrich will remain partly common property, in that everyone may practice riding him. In an emergency, anyone may ride him. To add to our fine field of wheat, barley, and corn, we planted potatoes and cassavas on the other side of Jackal Island. We had not neglected the ostrich's eggs, and one day Fritz introduced me with great glee to 3 little ostriches. Sadly, the little creatures didn't live long. One died shortly after hatching, and the others tottered about on their oversized feet for a few days before passing away. We had salted and dried the bear hides, but they needed tanning. I used a mixture of honey and water on them. They made the skins flexible, with soft, glossy fur. We got a side benefit from this, for as I boiled the honey in water, I realized we might make a drink like English mead. I set some aside, then boiled it again with nutmeg and cinnamon. Everyone tried it in moderation and found it delicious, so my wife asked me to brew a larger supply. With our winter stores well laid in, I now turned to minor details. The boys had been clamoring for hats, and I agreed to try making some from the muskrat skins. I treated them heavily to remove the smell, then trimmed off the fur and mixed it with raw rubber to make a sort of felt. Then I molded and stretched until I had the shape of a hat. When this cured, I dyed it bright red. The next morning I presented my wife with a neat little red Swiss cap. She lined it with a little of our precious silk, then plumed it with an ostrich feather, and put it on little Franz. We all said he had cut a handsome figure, and everyone else wanted one. Very well, I said. If you get me the raw materials, boys, I'll make a dozen rat traps, but be sure they don't kill the muskrats at once. So they will kill the muskrats at once, so they don't suffer. While they got to work, I tried making some porcelain from the pipe clay and talc. My first results were not very good. Some of my vessels were oddly shaped, and some cracked over the stove. Eventually I succeeded in making a set of white cups and saucers, a cream jug, a sugar bowl, and 6 small plates. Despite the awkward appearance of some of these, my family was most pleased. Filled with tea, cream, sugar, and fruit, they brightened up our dinner table. As we used them for the first time, we heard the sound of thunder.